Hi all, today we will discuss frequently asked interview questions for a Spring framework. So what all are the Spring framework frequently asked interview questions? In every interviewer they will ask this type of questions. If you are added in your resume for a Spring framework, a Spring Boot related technology. So the first thing is what is a Spring overview? Can you explain a Spring overview? What all are the Spring overview features is there? So what is a Spring? Can you explain a Spring? Why a Spring framework we are using? What is the difference between a Spring framework and another framework? And the next question they will ask, like what are the important features and advantage of a Spring? If you are using working of a Spring or a Spring Boot, the same question they may ask. What is the important features of or advantage in a Spring framework or a Spring Boot? The next question is what is a Spring IOC container? Why to use a Spring IOC container? And the next question is what all are the common implementations of the application context? When to use application context? And the next question is what is the difference between Bean Factory and application context? We have a two things. One is a Bean Factory and application context. So when to use application context and when to use Bean Factory? So these type of interview questions they will ask. The second thing is what is dependency injections? When to use dependency injection? And the next question is what all are the type of dependency injection supported by a Spring framework? So there are multiple type of dependency injection which is supporting in a Spring framework. So what all are those? And the next question is which DI would be suggested, constructor based or setter based DI dependency injection? So we have a constructor based dependency injection and setter based. So which one is the prefer or suggest? And the next question is what is a spring beans? When to use a spring beans? And the next question is what all are the spring beans? How many types of spring beans? The next question is what is the difference between bean scope and does a spring support? So what all are those bean scope supported by a spring framework? What all are the different type of bean scope? The next question is what is bean lifecycle in a spring framework? And the next question is what all are the different ways to configure a class as a spring bean? And the next question is are singleton beans is thread safe in a spring framework? So we can have a singleton. So singleton beans we can create it. So is this thread safe in a spring framework? So how we can say and what all are the ways we can see this spring framework have singleton beans is thread safe? The next question is inner beans. What is inner beans in a Spring framework? And the next question is how to inject a Java collection in a Spring. How to inject a Java collection in a Spring. The next question is explain different modes of AutoWire. What all are the modes in AutoWire in a Spring framework? So the next question is what is the limitation of AutoWiring? Some limitations is there in AutoWire. And the next question is it possible to inject null or empty string value in a Spring? If yes, then how? How to get servlet context and servlet config object in a Spring Bean? So these all are the Spring Beans related questions. Now we will discuss here a Spring annotations. So what is the Java based configuration? Give some annotation example. What is a Spring Java based configuration? Give some annotations example. What is a annotation based container configuration? How do you turn on annotation right wording? What is the purpose of at the rate required, at the rate autowire, at the rate qualifier annotation? And what is the difference between component annotation, controller annotations, repository annotation, service annotation in Spring? So these all are the annotation based questions. Now we will discuss here AOP. So AOP is a Spring Aspect Oriented Programming. So, what is AOP and what is Aspect? What is the difference between AOP and Aspect? The next question is, what do you understand by aspect oriented programming? The next question is, what is aspect? What is advice? What is point cut? What is joint point? What is advice argument in AOP? The next question is, what is the difference between Spring AOP and aspect JOOP? The next question is, what is advice? And the next question is, what is weaving? And what are the different points are where weaving can be applic- applicable or applied? The next question is a Spring model interview question. So, what is a Spring model view controller? So, what is MVC? We can say what is MVC in a Spring framework? What is a Spring MVC framework? And the next question is, what is controller in a Spring MVC? And what is the difference between component, controller, repository, service annotation? And the next question is, what is servlet dispatcher and context loader listener? The next question is, what is view resolver in a Spring framework? And the next question is, what is multi-part resolver and when it is used? And the next question is, how to handle exceptions in a Spring MVC framework? How to handle exception in a Spring MVC framework? And the next question is, how to create an application context in Java program? The next question is, can we have a multiple Spring configuration file? Next question is, what is context loader listener? And the next question is, what all are the minimum configuration needed to create a Spring MVC application? The next question is, how would you relate a Spring MVC framework to a Spring MVC architecture? And the next question is, how to achieve localizations in a Spring MVC application? The next question is, what all are the some important Spring annotations and that are frequently used in a Spring framework? So we can give some annotations, real time examples. The next question is, can we send a custom object in the response for controller handler method? If yes, how? The next question is, how to upload a file in Spring MVC? The next question is, how to validate form data in Spring Web MVC? And the next question is, what all are the Spring MVC interceptor and how it to use it? The next question is, what is a Spring application context and what all are the some example uses in one? The next question is, how do you load and inject the property in a Spring Bean? And the next question is, what all what are the different ways to configure class in a Spring Bean? Now we will discuss here a Spring Data Access. So, how can JDBC is used more efficiently in a Spring framework? The next question is, how would you achieve transaction management in a Spring? The next question is, how to use Tomcat JNDI data source in a Spring Web application. And the next question is, what all are the benefits in a Spring framework transaction management? So these all are the questions is related for a Spring. So mostly if you are going for the interview as a fresher to experience, so frequently ask these interview questions for the Spring framework. So if you prepare these all interview questions, then easily you can crack a Spring based interview questions easily of any interview, either is going for this fresher level to experience level. So take as a reference and prepare accordingly. Yeah, thank you.